June 8, 2006. A man walks into a hotel room at the Imperial Palace Casino in Biloxi, Mississippi. He sits down, smiles, and starts talking. "We've hit 29 casinos, $7 million, and they've never caught us." He thinks he's meeting a new dealer, someone looking to join the crew, someone he can trust. He's wrong. The room is bugged. The man across from him is an undercover agent, and every word he says is being recorded. This is the moment everything falls apart. But it didn't start here. It started 4 years earlier in a small casino outside San Diego with a dealer who'd had enough of watching other people win. His name was Tran, and what he built over the next 4 years would become the most successful casino scam in U.S. history. The scam didn't need tools or threats, just family, discipline, and one small flaw in the way casinos shuffle their cards. It worked in California, then Indiana, then Mississippi, then Canada. And for 4 years, it was invisible, until one meeting in one hotel room brought the entire thing crashing down. This is the story of the Tran Organization and how they outsmarted the most secure casinos in the world, until the FBI outsmarted them. San Diego, California, 2002. Phuong Quoc Trong had been working on the casino floor for years. He wasn't rich, he wasn't important. He was just another mini baccarat dealer, wearing the uniform, following the rules, and dealing cards for people who made 10 times more than him in a single night. He came to the US from Vietnam after the war, settled in California, married Van Tu Tran, a woman from the same community. They met in high school, got jobs in casinos, and together they learned the system inside out. Day after day, they watched players walk away with stacks of chips while they earned minimum wage. The dealers handled every hand, but none of the winnings ever came their way. And the more Trong worked, the more he noticed how the game never really changed. The cards were dealt, the house won, and obviously most players lost. But he also noticed something else. Something small. The way the decks were shuffled. The way the same hands came back in patterns. The way no one, not the pit bosses, not surveillance, was paying attention to what actually happened when the cards were reshuffled between rounds. It wasn't just a hunch. It was a gap in the system, a routine so predictable it could be used. He brought it up to Van. She listened. She had seen the same thing. They weren't thinking about stealing money. They were thinking about getting even. The casino made billions every year. They were barely covering rent. To Trong, the real problem wasn't the players. It wasn't luck. It was the casino itself, a business designed to profit off people like him, while giving just enough back to keep everyone quiet. He was done being quiet. And one night, sitting at home after a long shift, he said it out loud. If we can control the shuffle, we can control the game. Van didn't blink. She asked how, and that's where it all started. The plan wasn't perfect yet, but the idea was simple. Use the shuffle, exploit the pattern, bet when the outcome is already known. Not by counting cards, not by marking them, but by keeping part of the deck exactly the same, and betting when the exact order comes back into play. They had no money, no team, no protection. But they had something more valuable: experience. They weren't outsiders trying to cheat the system. They were the system, and they knew exactly how to break it. San Diego, California, early 2002. Trong didn't rush into it. He knew that one mistake, one camera, one floor manager, one hand out of place would end everything. So before they stepped into a real casino, he built it from the ground up. He cleared out a corner of the apartment, laid out a table, grabbed 2 decks of cards, and began testing, over and over. How to shuffle just enough to look real, how to protect the slug, how to keep 40 cards untouched in the middle of chaos. Van watched, then joined in. She practiced the shuffle every night, practiced keeping her hands steady, her pace normal, her posture relaxed. Nothing could look off, not to surveillance, not to the pit boss. Trong kept track of everything. He built a rotation of who would bet, who would record, who would signal. They created their own system, numbers, cues, eye contact, enough to keep the table moving without saying a word. Then they brought in family. Van's cousins, her sister, one or two trusted friends. They needed people who wouldn't break under pressure. Each person had a role: recorder, shooter, placeholder. Nobody acted outside the plan. There was no room for freelancing. Once the team had the rhythm down, once a slug could be tracked and predicted with precision, Trong made the call. It was time to test it. Sikwang Casino, July 2002. Van took a shift behind the table. It was a regular spot, nothing unusual. Her family sat down as players, just a few dressed like everyone else, bet like everyone else. They weren't there to win big. They were there to see if it would work. As the shoe emptied, Van gathered the cards. Her hands moved calmly, just like they'd practiced. She shuffled most of the deck, but kept one section untouched. A slug of 40 cards stayed in the same order as before. She slid it back into the shoe. No one flinched. No one looked twice. Then the betting started. The recorder tracked the slug from the first card. When it was ready, the signal was given. The players bet. Banker, player, tie, always based on the known outcome. And they won. Not once or twice, but consistently, just like the apartment rehearsals. By the end of the night, they walked out with just over $3,000. The system worked. Then they came back the next week. Then again, same table, same setup. The slug ran clean. The wins added up. $3,000 turned into $8,000. Then $10,000. Then the pattern broke. Surveillance flagged Van's behavior. The wins weren't huge, but the table didn't feel right, and they noticed something off about how she handled the cards. Van was pulled into the back office, questioned, let go. A few days later, Trong was out too. The first version of the operation was finished. The casino referred the incident to the FBI, but in 2002, it didn't matter. It wasn't organized crime or corporate fraud. The file was opened, labeled, and shelved without any arrests or charges. Just one failed shuffle, and a couple who now knew the system wasn't just beatable, it was broken. August 2002. Van was out of a job. Trong lost his dealer's license. The test at Sikwang had worked, just not long enough. They knew they had something, but now the cameras were watching. Their names were in the system, the casino had flagged them, and the incident was sitting on a desk inside the FBI's San Diego office. Normally, that would be the end of the story, but 2002 wasn't normal. It was less than a year after 9/11. Every federal agency was focused on what happened. Casino fraud wasn't even close to a priority. A rogue dealer at a tribal casino? The Bureau had bigger cases. The file stayed open, but no one followed up. Just silence. And that silence said everything Trong needed to hear. The plan hadn't failed. It had exposed something deeper. Casinos were fast to catch a bad shuffle, but they didn't share what they knew. There were no alerts sent to other properties, no system connecting one casino to the next. As long as they moved quickly and changed faces often, no one would put it together. They had tested the system, and the system had let them walk. But Trong knew, next time, it couldn't just be Van and a few cousins. He needed a crew. People who wouldn't talk, people with discipline, people who understood the game. He went to his strength, family. Van's brother, Tai Kiem Tran, was already working in casino security. Others had experience as dealers, floor supervisors, or card players. They spoke the language. They trusted each other. Most of them were Vietnamese. Most of them were broke, but every single one of them knew how casinos operated. Trong had been looking for a way to beat the game. Now he was building something else, a team that could move silently, city to city, casino to casino, always one step ahead. The first attempt had nearly collapsed before it began, but now he understood the real advantage. It wasn't the slug, it wasn't the shuffle, it was the delay. By the time anyone figured out what had happened, they'd already be gone. It's March 2003, San Diego. They weren't gamblers anymore. They were operators. Trong and Van didn't just want a second shot, they wanted to scale. And to do that, they needed control, not just of the cards, but of the people sitting at the table. The first rule was simple: never work with outsiders. The second, never explain how it works unless you have to. The third, trust loyalty more than skill. They built the foundation from inside the Vietnamese community. Brothers, cousins, friends of cousins, people who wouldn't break because everyone had something to lose. Some were former dealers, some were desperate players, others were quiet enough to follow instructions without asking questions. If you were in, you learned the system fast. There was no time for mistakes. Every member trained in one of three roles. The recorder sat near the dealer, tracked the slug from the first card, knew when it entered the shoe, passed on signals quietly, a glance, a finger tap, a phone call pretending to be something else. The dealer, usually someone already working inside the casino, trained to false shuffle without being seen, controlled their hands, movement, pace, knew exactly how to protect the slug. The shooter, the one placing bets, followed the signal, never bet outside instruction, made the big plays when the slug hit. Everyone else at the table was a placeholder. They didn't win, they just took up space, blocking real players from interfering with the timing. Communication had to be perfect. Sometimes it was a cigarette held with one finger, sometimes a nod, sometimes a soft Vietnamese word that no one else in the room understood. Once the slug was back in play, the bets were automatic. Everything looked natural, calm, clean, and that was the goal. It was about being invisible. 29th of March 2003. Cache Creek Casino, California. The first real run. 15 members of the Tran family checked into the casino under different names: day shift, night shift, graveyard. Van handled the team. Trong watched the floor. They worked 3 tables at once, rotated positions, tracked the slug, passed the signals, placed the bets. The dealers were already on the payroll, recruited weeks earlier, paid in cash, trained in secret. It ran for 4 weeks straight. By the end of March, the crew had pulled in $158,000 with no heat. No suspicious footage, no complaints, just a few players who looked lucky. It worked, and this time, it worked big. They didn't stay. They quit while they were ahead, left quietly, clean. No one followed them. That's when Trong made the call. We can take this anywhere. They had the crew, they had the method, and now they had the proof. And like that, the Tran Organization was born. From 2003 to 2005, the plan had worked in California, but California was just the beginning. Trong looked at the map and saw one thing: opportunity. Every casino with hand-shuffled cards was vulnerable. Every city with a small tribal operation, short-staffed security, and overworked surveillance, even better. They didn't need a perfect hit every time. They just needed 2 weeks. The crew split into cells, 3 to 5 members, always rotating, always anonymous. Fake names, rental cars, prepaid phones. They moved through Washington, Louisiana, Mississippi, Indiana, Connecticut, and even Canada. Each stop had the same steps. Step 1, fly in under the radar, book rooms separately, act like tourists. Step 2, reconnect with a friendly dealer, somebody already trained or someone who needed the cash. Step 3, test a slug. If the shuffle was clean, they bet low. If it held, they ramped up. Step 4, hit fast, hit hard, disappear. Most casinos didn't even realize what had happened until weeks later. By then, the team was already gone. At Emerald Queen Casino in Washington, they pulled in over $1.3 million across several shifts, day, night, and graveyard. In East Chicago, one crooked dealer helped them walk off with nearly $900,000 in blackjack over just 3 months. At Foxwoods in Connecticut, one shooter cleared $91,000 in 33 minutes. In every case, the cards were controlled, the outcomes were predicted, and the winnings were guaranteed. The core crew stayed back in San Diego. Van managed logistics, who flew where, who needed training, who got paid. Trong ran strategy. He picked the targets, chose the timing, handled the payouts. They kept the operation tight. No outsiders, no freelancers. everyone knew someone and no one ever talked. When a dealer got flagged, he was replaced. When a casino changed procedures, they moved on. And if anyone asked too many questions, they were out. No second chances. On the other hand, casinos started to notice the losses, but nothing made sense. No holes in the chips, no marked cards, just streaks of bad luck. A few security chiefs compared notes. The patterns didn't line up. Different states, different players, different faces. There was no central suspect. Nothing tied the hits together. And that's how Trong wanted it. He wasn't looking to break records. He was looking to stay invisible. By 2005, they had hit over a dozen casinos. The take was now over $3 million, and not a single indictment had been filed. But Trong wasn't done. The more they pulled off, the more he believed something dangerous, that they were untouchable. Late 2005. The money was coming in faster than ever. New homes, new cars, a Rolex Presidential on Trong's wrist, a diamond-studded Mercedes-Benz pendant, properties in San Diego, Escondido, and Vietnam. He wasn't hiding it, and that was the problem. The disciplined crew had turned into something bigger and harder to control. There were too many people now, too many flights, too many dealers asking for a raise. Some were getting impatient. In the early days, a colluding dealer could walk away with $2,000 per false shuffle. Easy money, no questions asked. But now, some of them were doing the math. The shooters were winning six figures in one session. The dealers still stuck with the same cut. They started pushing back. One by one, dealers asked for more. Trong said no. He believed the structure was fine the way it was. He believed everyone should be grateful. After all, without him and Van, there was no system, no money, no operation. He stopped returning calls. Some payments were delayed. Some were cut entirely. And just like that, the thing that made the Tran Organization strong, trust, started breaking from the inside. One dealer in Indiana threatened to walk. Another in Mississippi leaked just enough information to get a meeting with gaming officials. And the FBI were still watching. They'd been building a case for over a year, following names, tracing flights, reviewing surveillance from casinos across the country. They knew the system now. What they didn't have was someone to flip. Until now. One angry dealer, one broken promise. That's all it took. Then it started to collapse. More dealers came forward. Some wanted immunity, some wanted revenge. All of them knew exactly how the scam worked. They knew the shuffles, the signals, the slug, the code words, the players, and they were ready to talk. But information wasn't enough. The FBI needed proof. They needed to catch Trong in the act, and they were about to get their chance. Biloxi, Mississippi, June 2006. The Mississippi Gaming Commission had already flipped a dealer. A quiet one, just a silent agreement. Then, the FBI brought in their own man. He wasn't a cop in uniform. He was the perfect mark, a low-paid casino dealer, supposedly down on luck, open to anything. They gave him a fake name, a shift at the Imperial Palace Casino, and a backstory that looked real on paper. Then they waited. Trong flew in that week, alone. He had no reason to be suspicious. Mississippi had always been good to them. Quiet casinos, less surveillance, fewer questions. They met in a hotel suite. The agent listened. Trong talked. "We've done this in 29 casinos," he said. "They zoom in on me all day long. They still don't know what I'm doing." He laid out the method, how the shuffle worked, what the crew needed, how they would split the money. He talked about his cars, a Porsche, a Mercedes, the houses. He told the agent, "You only need to steal once a month." He didn't know the whole room was wired. Everything he said was being recorded. Video, audio, time-stamped. This wasn't a rumor anymore. This was a confession. The next day, the FBI got word. Trong had booked a flight to Vietnam. They couldn't wait. Agents moved fast. At LAX, just minutes before boarding, Trong was arrested at the gate. He didn't resist. He didn't speak. Back in Mississippi, the agents already had the tape. They had the plan, the crew, the names. And now, they had the man behind it. The walls were closing in, and the Tran Organization was out of time. Trong's arrest was just the beginning. The FBI already had the wiretaps, the video, the sting meeting. Now they moved on the rest. San Diego, New Orleans, Connecticut, Indiana, dozens of names, coordinated raids. One by one, the crew started falling. Van Tu Tran was indicted. So was her brother, Tai Kiem Tran. Her cousins, the dealers, the recorders, the programmers, even the placeholders. 47 people were charged. Racketeering, conspiracy, money laundering, theft from tribal casinos. Casinos that once hadn't even known they were being robbed were now listed as victims in federal court. Most didn't fight the charges. Faced with hard evidence, video, wire, logs, flight records, over 40 members of the Tran Organization pled guilty. Trong took a deal: 70 months in federal prison, $5.7 million in restitution, plus forfeiture of homes, cars, watches, and every asset they could link to the scam. Van pled guilty in 2011, 36 months and the same restitution order. Others got less, a few got more, but none walked away clean. The organization that once hit 29 casinos in silence was now gone. The courts called it one of the most successful casino scams ever produced. The FBI called it one of the most sophisticated they had ever seen. In the end, it wasn't high-tech cameras or secret surveillance that brought it down. It was greed. It was unpaid dealers, broken promises, arrogance. The thing that built the Tran Organization, family loyalty, tight discipline, complete control, became the very thing that destroyed it.